And really the evidence is just turning so far away from that. Direct experimental evidence right out of God's world. It is really phenomenal. So you want to get a hold of that. Better yet, what they want to do, the premier conference, Bill was there, Roger was there. Is Roger here this evening? I met Roger at the conference, and there were 2,200 people. The only reason there weren't more is they had sold out all the tickets. In the last few days, they were just bombarded. Well, can't you just sell one more ticket? And the fire marshal said no. But it was just fantastic, and they want to do this in cities around the nation. So Fort Lauderdale, Coral Ridge, and Calvary Chapel down there are going to join in on one. There's one for Houston, Roanoke, Virginia, I think. Denver would be an excellent location. And you get the actual scientists that did the work. And these are also all committed Christians whose faith just shines through what they're presenting. And so I would really encourage you to get behind that, and it should be a whole area-wide event that would attract a lot of local attention and can be used by God in powerful ways. And again, that's very sophisticated research. There's no doubt about that. But the bottom line is you can take God at His Word, and if you build on that sure foundation of God's Word, the world begins to make sense and our place in it. So I encourage you to try to be one of the sponsors, and that there's be a few selected cities. What better city than Denver, right? And so I'll look forward to coming back for that, plus visiting the kids and the grandkids. Well, appreciate that you're showing up. So usually I give general all-purpose talks and so on. But Brian has told me that you people are way beyond that. You like to look at the nitty-gritty details. Bill was sharing nitty-gritty details with me. And so one time I did the origin of life at a more technical level than I usually do. Last time I was here, and wow, stayed over for an hour or more of questions, And so I thought, all right. So we'll get into one of my favorite things that's nobody else's favorite. I've only talked about this in public once. I was in Australia. And that was the year my wife and I and youngest daughter spent a year there with creation science. And so I was one of the locals. The invited guest speaker was A.E. Wilder Smith. Many of you know that name. Met his wife at the conference there in San Diego. Well, he got sick on the plane coming there. He was supposed to speak. They come up to me at lunch and say, Dr. Wilder Smith has just fallen ill. Can you fill in for him? At 1 o'clock, all right, it's 12:45. Well, ordinarily that would have been no problem because I have, talks I give, but they were already part of the program. And so I said, well, it takes forever to make up a general talk. It only takes a few minutes to make up a technical talk. Wonder if they'd be interested in metabolism. And so I tried it, and they were. And I thought, well, my students are never interested in this. But then I thought, aha, now I know the difference. So when I'm sharing with you, the first thing I want to tell you is what? There will be no final exam. So you could just relax and enjoy it. My students, where did that hydrogen atom go? They're worried about repeating all this. And so to start with, I'd like to introduce you to this guy here. It has a bad rap these days. And part of it for good reason, but what you're looking at here is a ball and stick model of the sugar molecule, the particular sugar, glucose, blood sugar. And so this is the one that's transported around our bodies, and this is the one that's manufactured by plants and photosynthesis. So this represents a stored energy for living things, plants, animals, and people. And it's a good portable energy supply. It's real powerful. It's a very powerful, in a sense, explosive molecule, and yet, it doesn't go off easily. And so you can carry it around at least as safely as you can carry around a can of gas. If you run out of gas and you got to carry a can, you're not really worried about it. If you drop it, nothing terrible is going to happen. But it's got a lot of energy in it. When you finally get it to the right place, it can work for you. And so sugar is that portable form of energy that is useful for plants, animals, and people, and so on. It is possible, to get too much of it. It can be abused, but by itself, it's not evil. You get the idea today, sugar, it's a horrible, monstrous thing. No, this is actually a wonderful molecule. But it is that kind of stored form of energy that's really good for carrying from place to place and so on. But you don't really use gasoline to make toast, do you? You don't, pull a bread out of the bag and pour gas on it and toss a match on it. No, that doesn't make good toast. Well, apparently I have to remember that one. Okay. And, you don't start up your computer, by pouring gas on it, throwing a match in there. Okay. And, you can begin to think of lots of things like that where gasoline would not be the energy of choice, And so electricity is, a lot easier to use, and there's a lot more immediate application. So electricity is kind of a useful form of energy that can be used to run toasters and computers, and all light bulbs and, all sorts of things. But, electricity doesn't carry very well, does it? You can't take a handful of electricity and stuff it in your pocket. And even if you put it in a battery, it's not actually electricity you're carrying, it's a pile of chemicals that you're carrying that can make electricity. And it's heavy. It's a lot worse than carrying around gasoline. And so you kind of got two things going for you here. One is sugar. Sugar is the ubiquitous storage form of energy, easily transported throughout the plant, throughout the human body, and yet it can be used in the living cell to make this more readily available form of energy that can be used to power nerve impulse transmission, building of protein, hormone synthesis, muscle contraction, all of these other things are powered more directly by ATP. And of course that's an initial. There's so many of these in biology, sometimes you kind of forget what they are, but this is adenosine triphosphate. That's what that stands for. The A, by the way, is the same A as the A in the genetic code. And that adenine shows up everywhere. Boy, I've thought of putting it on my license plate. It's part of the genetic code. It's part of the energy harnessing system. It's part of hormones. It's part of cycling and metabolism. It's all over the place. And so that's the form of energy. It's got 3 phosphates, just the same as the phosphates you dig out of the ground. So it's an adenine attached to a sugar that has 3 phosphates, and the phosphates can be donated to other molecules and in effect raise their energy level. It's kind of like putting a hot foot, or lighting some energy to them and so on. And so what I'd like to look at this evening is the way sugar is converted, this storage form of energy up here. Sugar is converted into immediately usable energy to run the living cell, kind of like gasoline being used to run generators to make electricity that then you can plug in to run your refrigerator and TV and computer and toaster and all of those other things. And what we're going to look at today, this is kind of particularly interesting in an origins point of view, because this